Harlan liked romantic movies and love songs that made Mom roll her eyes. He started his own construction company and bought and paid for a house at age 22. His first wife was named Sally. Sally ran off with a church leader, complaining that Harlan worked too much. In his 30s, Harlan married another woman he seemed to love very much, but who died of cancer. In the past, Laine and Harlin butted heads when Laine said, "I have to make my own decisions." Only her car broke down and she got cut down in size when she needed rescuing. They always came for her, though. Yet, it was this kind of thing that seemed to keep her stuck. When Harlan wasn't around, Mom called him her older friend. Harlan wanted Mom to move into his place on Rock Turf Road, but she liked her independence. Harlan could name all the mountains in the range behind his house, with the large paned windows which overlooked the barn and the mountains, and where the deer smiled like happy free children in streaming strands of sunlight. She only knew of the range the Three Sisters. "I wish I was born one generation further back where the real mountain men lived," Harlan said once. Mom was dependent on Harlan for some extra cash at times since she only worked part-time at the library. She owned the house but still had to pay property taxes. When Laine applied to graduate school for the first time, she'd abandoned it listening to their advice. The reaction had been silence. Then Harlan had taken her to the side. "No offense, darlin', but wish in one hand, crap in the other, see which fills up faster. It makes a fine hobby, but not something to earn a living from." Once he also said, "You are special, you just don't realize it yet." Laine was different from her parents. She was idealistic and intuitive, and they were practical and rational. Mom never asked Laine about her writing beyond the, "How's your writing going?" She didn't encourage Laine, not to fill her up with delusions. On the few occasions that Laine did share her work, it was clear that they had creative differences. Mom would say, "People want to hear story about real people's lives," when Laine wrote about cows and fairies and things. On the other hand, she didn't want to leave them, her parents, either. She was just finding it hard to stay small anymore. She kept feeling like she was supposed to be something more. And it was okay that they didn't get what she was trying to do or see her vision. Maybe it was one from prehistory where myths and reality blurred. Like maybe she could actually create something beautiful even if it didn't quite make sense. Like if all the words came out dreamy, like a painting that had been smashed or submerged in water. It was like the painting of the lake scene that she struggled to hang back upon the wall. It had once belonged in their house in Billings. She used to sit across 3 paisley chairs in the basement, looking at it. It had a brown frame around it, nothing ornate. The picture itself seemed lavish, although it was only a lake scene. Laine clumsily struggled to place it back. and it seemed like Mom and her relationship somehow. The truth was, it had started out as something loving, but had twisted and morphed like a braided willow branch that grew so suffocatingly close together no new buds could explode through the bandy arms of their knuckled branches. There would always be the good memories, huckleberry picking in the mountains when she was younger, or foraging for morels after the forests burn, making jam and huckleberry brownies. In the woods, Mom asked if she knew the difference between the poisonous tewberry or the huckleberry. It looks like a gummy bear, Mom said. Mom ran down the mountain at the slightest scare of a bear. She'd do anything to protect them, but didn't understand how capable Laine was on her own, or didn't want her to realize it for herself, maybe. She's a young thing and will not leave her mother. Perhaps losing her was her worst fear and also greatest freedom. So Mom could become the empress of her kingdom the way Laine had always seen her. The mom who built replicas of cities on TV trays in their living room in the house in Billings, while going to college to become a teacher. Her own brilliant and lovely mom. When her joy was full, how she'd dance around the kitchen, making everyone join in with her. "Can you go upstairs and fix the TV before you leave?" Mom asked. Bonanza was playing on the television, which was shut partially in a wooden chest. MeTV was one of the channels that came in from the satellite dish Dad had put up when he was alive. Another one of his gutsy projects, standing on the roof and wrestling with the antenna, trying to mount it. Since then it had pressed into the attic. Laine went up the stairs, turning until she picked up the signal when she heard Mom's shout below. When the winds blew, it would change its direction again. A half hour later, when Laine returned to her place on Roman Hill, she slid into the 3-car gravel pit next to her neighbors, who were both men in their 50s. Her place looked over the valley. It was beginning to grow dark, and the fairy lights of the city, where she lived and worked, just north of her mom's house, into the dimming light. Laine had an obsession with Irish folklore ever since Grandpa read her the book about Cuchulainn, the ancient Irish warrior so long ago. It was her favorite childhood story about a red-hot warrior that got blown to pieces but always managed to rearrange himself to keep living. Grandpa told her the story. Born on a battlefield, combat's a way of life, all he's ever known. He went to the warrior school in Alba, and it became a part of him. His legs, his arms, his sturdy neck. He doesn't take it from no one. He'll fight man, beast, devil, or God. And every woman is paralyzed in his embrace. Laine loved Max. In her mind, Cuchulainn was Max. She looked over the grassy hillside, which burrowed underneath her porch like an animal, many miles out. One time she was feeling so secluded, standing on her porch and looking at the vast rural landscape. She remembered hearing how camas grew up in those grassy fields, and how once the natives returned looking for the camas plant, only to be shooed away from the landowners. Being in the valley gave one the impression that nowhere else existed. the canyons of open and exposed rock face. The Bitterroot was so beautiful and harsh, it felt surreal at times. Winter survival was hard. It was the lack of jobs, the bitter cold, or the isolation that drank from the slow-moving rivers. A person grew to embody the land in this way. Laine thought that most of all, her childhood friend Holly embodied the land. Holly was a deeply wise, quiet, happy child, and when she wasn't being respected, she stood resolute and quiet. Her mother came from the Lakota Sioux tribe, and her stepfather Earl, who raised her and her sisters and one brother, was the county bailiff. Holly seemed to contain a wisdom and stillness that grew from the cold rivers, the loving silence in which the world vibrates, with all living creatures in a common, understood kind of telepathy, or maybe simple instinct. The way animals know to move upland before a tsunami. Thanks for watching my video, guys. I'll be back with another video next Wednesday. Until then, ciao!